Oh, is it back? There we go. For some reason, it didn't turn the mic on. I must have been mucking with the sound. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. Normally, because not many people watch, I can do full streams without any sound. Oh, Janelle's here. So I've often done entire streams with no sound and not realised until I've finished. So yeah, we're doing well. So thank you. The fact that there's chat here to tell me there's no sound is a bonus. So anyway, now I just want to say, okay, I started. So first up, adults talking, shush, relax, okay? Don't make me regret defending either side here. Don't make me regret it, okay? I'm trying to do good faith stuff. I'm trying to just explain this to people who want to understand what's going on. No, don't use your fucking slurs. Behave yourselves, okay? I'm defending the right for Kiwifarms to exist, okay, only because I want you to behave in other places, okay? That's your space. I'm defending your space. Don't bring it here. Second of all, okay, I want to make sure that we aren't like mischaracter. I'm going to misspeak. This is a live stream. So I'm going to misspeak. I'm going to say something that's going to piss someone off, and I have no interest in being a target. So there you go. So far, I'm just going to say I haven't been. So there's just a little bit of sort of, you know, qualifying, housekeeping, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's not a hostage situation. I'm a big girl. I can handle it, okay? I'm going to tell you a little story about stuff, like about why, first of all, why none of this is new, okay? My interest is in how we solve the problem, and my interest is more in how the grown-ups solve the problem, okay? I need a fucking scourer for my brain right now because I have watched every it's like so much drama. I don't know how people fucking do it. It's like, I feel like I was allergic to it in high school and I'm allergic to it now. And it's a lot of stupid. It's a lot. I don't care about the details. I don't care, you know, but I'm just going to try and elevate the conversation at least a little bit with, you know, my experience and explain what's going on, explain what certain things mean, and explain sort of why it's important and why I think it's important, okay? I really don't want to get into the weeds on this. Follow the golden rule on Taya's chats, which is the only rule that I have is don't be a fuckwit. You know if you're being a fuckwit. I know if you're being a fuckwit. Don't do it. Stop it, okay? Just fucking stop it. Calm down. Go outside, okay? And I will periodically put this scrolling text up that says that in case someone lands and is a fuckwit. Feel free, if someone is a fuckwit in the chat, to tell them they're a fuckwit. Okay, anyway. So, first up, I'm going to I have to maybe define some terms first, okay? Because there's lots of layers here. And I think part of the problem, especially with these big internet sort of wars, most people kind of enter in and they go, okay, people assume that, first of all, you know what, you know, like Kiwifarmers particularly, they assume that people who land on their forum instantly understand them. And, you know, I'm sure most people understand why the optics are bad in terms of defending Kiwifarms, okay, first off. Second of all, and I'll explain some of the history there, okay. Second of all, you know, people assume that there's layers of, you know, I work in an area where I've got to explain both tech and political concepts, two areas where, first of all, the Dunning-Kruger effect is like out of sight. Second of all, where, you know, like these are two areas where, you know, literacy is fairly low. So when they both intersect, it becomes even more, it's hard because a lot of it's really boring, okay? And unfortunately, I'm going to have to explain some stuff that makes it boring, okay? Autumn Lily said, hope you're feeling better. Thank you. Now, another thing is that I will probably not interact too much with the chat, mostly because I'm ADD as fuck and I will just derail. But I will try to get through and explain some stuff. But I will try to answer questions because I do tend to wander off and miss things and whatever. So there's a balance. That's why I'm asking people to just, you know, I don't have a producer. There's no one here. I'm not, you know, I do this for the love of it. That's it. So just behave yourselves and, you know, again, don't make me regret it. So, you know, I'll keep the chat going as long as people behave themselves. So, so there's a few concepts here that make it very difficult to understand. And it does, again, This happened when I was trying to explain, a lot of things. This has been going on for a long time. A lot of people would probably be familiar with Kiwifarms because of this, the person who shall not be named, which is one of their favourite lol cows, and a lot of people go there for sort of information. So a lot of people know about Kiwifarms. Those who don't are probably adults. And those who don't, I actually, I have read Kiwifarms from time to time. I tend to not be in the weeds there, and I'll explain sort of, I kind of grew out of that stuff. It's also just being busy, but also, I do sometimes check what Kiwi farmers are up to, mostly because they act as a sort of archive around some of the big sort of internet wars. And when you research that stuff and study that stuff, Kiwifarms becomes valuable resource, especially when it comes to lawsuits and sort of what's happening. I think anybody who is in this space who doesn't know about Kiwifarms is either lying or, not very good. I'm aware of Rakita law. I've watched everyone's stuff. I know who's involved. There's people that I'd rather sort of, again, it's nothing to do with any of the individuals involved. It's just that because I know the culture wars, I just would prefer to, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But it's a delicate balance between being used by sort of certain people to push this anti-trans narrative, which I disavow and, and don't want anything to do with. I'm trying to focus on the actual, just the issue. And sort of, so anyone who sort of inflames things, I just, it's not really my cup of tea. So I'll be selective. But anyway, so again, it's just again optics and whatever. So thank you. So, but some of these things are impenetrable. So usually when I think this happened, and I think a lot of this was more like this happened with Gamergate as well, where there were so many layers to this issue. It all kind of, and this is how I think when you've gone through this a few times, you kind of, and you end up being someone who has to push through the sort of, get through the weeds and get to sort of what the actual issue is and where the problem is. There's been people in tech that have been alerting about sort of, the role that sort of bizarre symbiosis with kind of that Gawker mob and that sort of bitchy, vloggy, fucking, journalist types, and the internet for some time, right? There's been that, and trying to sort of talk about how these things can be misused and trying to alert adults to sort of this clear pathway for, for the media to sort of manipulate messaging and sort of, mischaracterize and, all of that sort of stuff. So that happened, that's happened before. It's not new. I used to be, actually, no, before I get there, I'll tell you what some terms are. Okay, so we'll start there. So, first question I've been asked, what the fuck is a lol cow? Okay, so we'll start with lol cow. So if you've been on the internet for sort of a length of time, like especially sort of pre-2010, and, even like pre-2000 especially, yeah. So I'll answer that after. So we've got so a lol cow has quite a we all know a lol cow. Okay. In the sense that we follow a lot of them. Okay. If you're on this channel, I talk about quite a few of them. Right. And they're sort of people who so a lol cow is somebody who sort of seeks influence, okay? So seeks online influence or puts something out on the internet and you sort of, they're kind of not in on the joke, okay? So yeah, technically it's bullying, but without the history, there's without the understanding, so I'll take a while to warm up. So those who haven't seen me before realize that I just take a little while. I got to relax. Obviously, this is a delicate issue, so I'm going to be a little bit sort of hesitant with my words. I'm not one of those like people who just I'm considered in the way that I speak usually, and And this one in particular, requires thought and also ADHD and a stutter. So just, be patient with me. But so a lol cow is sort of a complex beast. The irony of being a lol cow is that you probably don't realize that you are one, because a big part of it is a lack of self-awareness. Okay. So basically it's just some sort of, person on the internet who's a bit thirsty, who, is kind of seeking influence. They kind of, a bit grifty maybe, or, they're kind of an audacious character online. And there's someone who sort of, it could be someone who overshares, or someone who, cry bully, could be someone who, like Taylor Lorenz would be considered a lol cow. Jessica Yaniv is one of the most famous lol cows, and that's one of the ones I think that a lot of people might be familiar with. A lot of that sort of info was coming from there. This does go back this history does sort of go back to Jessica Yaniv, which was, a whole, that sort of cone of silence around what was happening in Canada. And sort of noticing that the media sort of were ignoring that story and sort of letting that whole shield happen. Okay, so there's kind of this cone of silence and this cone of, protection and all of this sort of stuff. That sort of became apparent over a period of years. And that's why I think you're seeing this sort of double down. So there's a bit of history there, which is that, there's lots and lots of different things. But anyway, so I'm going into too much detail, but this does sort of go... a lol cow is just someone who sort of lacks self-awareness. They sort of, promote influence. When they sort of, like I said, that cry bullying, they kind of, whatever. But every so often, one of the main things is just sort of making fun of people on the internet. Okay. So a lot of it, from what I understand, again, I'm not in the weeds on this, but they kind of take down, it's not a far right website, right? They just take down people who take themselves too seriously, aren't in on the joke, made fun of, they're just kind of, tearing down. It's basically like, any kind of sort of, if you think about like a Perez Hilton pre-fame, where it was just snarky and catty and, drawing cum on their face and that sort of stuff. You ever read the comment sections of sort of Perez Hilton back in the day? Those blogs obviously became, more sanitized as time went on. But, sort of the early days where it was sort of, commonplace to just tear down sacred cows, okay? But, Kiwifarms kind of exists off the back of, things like Chris Chan and, some of those people that, just became sort of, internet figures in their own right. Now, is that bullying? Yeah, probably. Okay. Is it mostly harmless if you don't look at it? Sometimes. Okay. Again, the jury's out on it's case. A lot of this stuff is case by case. Okay. Now, so that's a lol cow. One of the other misconceptions that people don't have, I think, around these sort of what you would call extremist communities. Okay. Now, again, I'm just going with the premise. What is that? There's feds. Feds are all over it. Okay. Feds know. If you can find a website, okay, feds know about it. Okay, so they know about the communities. Okay, so that's one thing I think people don't quite realize is that 4chan, those types of things, even dark web. Like one of the common jokes with dark web is that it's mostly feds talking to other feds and honeypotting other feds. It's just right. So, some other stuff is that, most of the bad guys and most of the organised crime and most of the pedophilia networks and most of the actual abusive stuff actually happens on mainstream social networks. Okay. So a lot of the grooming and, actual grooming, a lot of, grooming, child pornography, a lot of like this sort of, a lot of this sort of pedo stuff is masturbating over normal photos of everyone's children, right? On mainstream like social media. Like that's a known thing. Okay. Again, this is quite delicate, so I'm just trying to But you've seen this on Twitter, which is, if you go a few clicks away and you're into Twitter or into whatever, okay, you'll see some pretty weird, dark shit. So that's one thing that we know, okay, which is that most of this stuff is actually hiding in plain sight. Second of all the feds know all about all of the extreme communities, okay? Let's qualify that. Non-mainstream internet communities. Now, to explain something like Kiwifarms is sort of, several episodes in itself, and I don't really think that getting into that, into too much detail is productive or sort of gets to the main point, because I've got 2 hours to do this thing max, and, I just want to get to the point. But so in the early 2000s, I used to write for a website, okay, and it was very similar, okay. It was all anonymous. The thing about me is I've never been anonymous online. I have nothing to hide. Everything I've written under my real name. I don't really, I've always just been straight up and down. That hurts, and it helps and hurts me in many ways, because, I also happen to know, like I've said in previous streams on anonymity, which is that I know a bunch of sort of high profile journalists and people from sort of that early era of the internet who managed to just sort of walk away from those usernames, where I know that they've bullied people to suicide. I know I'm watching to see who gets on this Kiwifarms track and who's very quiet. The ones who are very quiet, I think you'll know have histories. But that's one of those things on the internet that people don't understand. Right, which is that a lot of journalists, accountants, C-levels, fucking IT people, people who, otherwise normal, otherwise sane, but they're just letting off steam. Okay, think of South Park with with Kyle's dad. Where he's sitting there jerking off with a glass of wine. It's sort of cathartic. Like most people, like the psychology of a troll of trolls is again contested, but it varies. People troll for various reasons. Again, unless you have sort of that deep experience online, you kind of learn to spot that stuff. Now, in a community, so I was in a community that was very similar, lots of anonymous accounts, but it was more of a blog with comments. That kind of thing. It wasn't really a forum. I took over the site and I tried spinning it into a forum, and it didn't work. It only worked as a blog. And I used to write, snarky, we used to do neighbors recaps. We used to do sort of, celebrity teardowns. We used to do, I wrote one like the Biggest Loser recaps, and I called it Fat Dance, Fatty Dance, right? Exploitative. It was kind of, that kind of vein, right? That snark and that celebrity gossip and that, that thing is a legacy very much of sort of that internet pre-social media, particularly, but very much pre-2006. Now, 2007. Now, Kiwifarms was sort of a relic. And this is why I think you'll see people who may come to regret it, like myself, but, mostly understand and get the role that Kiwifarms plays, where it comes from. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of lore around the internet and what it used to be pre things like Cloudflare, pre things like, social media, pre things like the Eternal September. I've done a thing on the Eternal September, which is, where normies sort of continued to just keep crashing the internet and squeezing everyone out and telling us what to do and moving in bit by bit by bit. There's an element of generational change here, which is also, that anti-bullying programs. We didn't really have those, in sort of Gen X. We just bullied and, we bullied and were bullied and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that, there's a generational difference there, which is that, there's a very sort of anti-bullying, everything is bullying, words of violence fucking thing that's coming, from sort of, younger millennials and up and downwards, right? So again, there's a generational component to that. But also, so there's a generational clash here. But so anyway, I was part of one of those websites, right? And I grew out of it. I always just had my real name. So this is one of the things that I find. It's why I've been feeling like I have to push through this thing and defend the old internet, because I'm one of those people where not a lot can stick, because I've always been straight up and down. Everyone's got shit they preferred, everyone didn't know, but at the same time, I've always operated in a way where, because I've gone viral before and all those sorts of things, that you just don't put stuff online that you don't want public. Okay, there's always that chance that someone's going to find it, even if it's in a private community or anything like that. Don't do anything or put anything online that you don't want on the front page of the Washington Post, for example. Okay, so I've always lived that way, and when it came to data, I've always just kind of played with if you saw what ads I get, it's very weird, because I like to just sort of fool it a little bit, put weird shit into search terms and stuff like that, just to game it a little bit, so you kind of have some faux privacy, right? We don't have any privacy, but also again, knowing that the police and those people, they know about this stuff. There's no secrets. Okay, now I'm not saying that that you shouldn't have privacy, and I'm not saying that that's not something worth fighting for, but I think that this assumption that that people can't see what you're doing, or that it's not easy to find, information about you online, that anybody who is determined enough, can find who you are and what you, and that's where we sort of come with Kiwifarms, right? And this is where the definition of doxing needs to be made very clear. The reasoning for it needs to be sort of, passed out from bullying, okay? Because a lot of it is that it's public information, or, they're mostly just having a bit of a laugh at someone's expense over stuff that they put in public. Someone that's clueless, someone that, doesn't really have much self-awareness, or, is kind of, grifting or whatever. Okay. Now, this is the part where I'd say that when I saw, because I actually became aware of this early, because I watch most of the main players, right? I watch Young Turks, I watch Majority Report, I watch I watch all those main like lefty things, right? And I became aware of this, and again, because I come from that old internet, I also know there's some things that you just know. If you run communities or run anything over 500 community members, it becomes unmanageable very fast when it comes to sort of people that are, either not well, not in on the joke, can't behave themselves, all of these sorts of things. Like there's always that's just a numbers thing. Eventually you're going to have people in a community. When you've got a community of a certain size, you're going to have parts of that. Every community has it. Every community has parts of their community where the kind of disruptive, they're a liability sometimes for the community. There's all those things, right? That's just going to happen. That's what happens when humans gather together, even in good faith, in person. There's going to be you have a party. There's going to be two people. There's always that cousin or uncle that gets drunk and starts swearing at everybody. That's just people coexisting in a group. First up. Second of all, I keep saying, I'm not going to say first and second and third because I always lose count. So, I'm just going to make random points. Again, I'm not media trained. I don't give a fuck. This is my stream. You showed up, whatever. So there's that part that we know. But also the motivations for why people do stuff is complex, okay? So, the reason, and more, okay? This is something that is a problem online, which is trying to negotiate what it means to be in a public space run by private corporations, which were initially just small little communities where you've got cross-pollination of communities, okay? So it's not so much, like the old internet used to have, you'd have your forum wars, you had Even 4chan, different boards go at it, like between like the B and Pol, like those two, they go at it all the time, right? Fucking constantly trying to fuck with each other, and that's part of the fun of it. But you've also got sort of this sort of Tumblr broad, 4chan broad, this sort of edgelord SJW tribes, and there's that cross pollination there, and there's those sort of religious wars that happen. Okay, these tribal wars, these have been going on forever. But we've also got this sort of generational problem of, kids who see everything as bullying, a little bit coddled, a little bit privileged, okay, who will go into a community, and also, again, cultural differences. So, where I'm in Australia, so Australia is the uncle that gets drunk and swears at everybody all the time in the world, right? So, I've talked about this with politeness in the United States and the UK before, which is that, the US may tend to center themselves in all of these conversations, especially around, Section 230 and freedom of speech and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think, Americans in particular don't understand that most of us don't censor words. Most of us understand that words are words and words are not violence. And, that's a cultural thing that comes back from sort of, from Comstocking right the way through to fucking, child censorship, obscenity laws, all that sort of stuff. There's a massive history of censorship there with the United States that is unique to the United States and not to everyone else. Whereas, it is actually illegal to swear at a police officer in Australia, right? But, they don't enforce that shit. But I'm just saying, it's different cultures. But there's a cross-cultural component when it comes to norms even. So, I think Australians would be more, we're more tolerant of something like Kiwifarms because culturally we're more inclined to be sort of larrikins and, punch up and, make fun of people and, kind of haze and bully and that sort of stuff. So, my pain threshold is always going to be higher for something like Kiwifarms, right? But I can also understand why people don't like it. And that's the thing, is that I go, okay, I understand all the points of view here. I can understand the optics. If you haven't been on there for a while, it's very jarring. They allow slurs. Again, no matter how you feel about slurs, again, that's cultural. That depends on what, your particular worldview is. But the role of a platform, okay, and the role of law enforcement in particular, the role of government, all of these things, is that their role is to mediate these things that are subjective, okay, and, matters of opinion, okay. Where it crosses the line, again, knowing that law enforcement are mostly in these communities as well, okay, they're monitoring this shit, okay. Also, you have things like called containment forums, okay, which is where they'd rather them be on 4chan, or they'd rather them be, people who aren't okay, because they can monitor the situation and intervene, or, rather than going places where they can't be seen, okay, so out in the open. Now, Kiwifarms' mistake has always been, or not mistake, it's actually a strength. I see it as a strength, which is that it's out in the open, okay, and you go there, you see what they've said. They're up and down. You can see it for yourself, right? That's a strength. And it's the same with me. There's not really, I don't keep secrets. So people tend to project that it's like, yeah, you must, it's like, no, you get what you get. And Kiwifarms is like that. They're sort of straight up and down like that. Now, that doesn't mean that people won't organise off community, first of all, okay? It doesn't mean that people won't go onto other communities, even though, they have a policy of, if you, intervene or troll in real life, or Hassan Piker, okay? I quite like him quite a bit. He says, don't tap the glass. It's the exact, Kiwifarms has the exact same rule as Hassan Piker, okay? Technically speaking. This is what I'm saying. There's only so much that you can do as a community forum and a community admin. Again, a lot of this comes down to your tolerance for slurs. Like, as an Australian, I'm not as bothered by it as others, okay? I don't consider words to necessarily be bullying, okay? But that is generational, cultural, there's lots of things there. So there's that. There's a reason why I'm taking the time to sort of contextualize this, and I hope I'm explaining it well I'm not really, I never do, but feel free to ask questions. But so I was part of this, and I remember, like, this was what, 2005, 2006. And, I was on this website that was very similar, snarky, obviously, I've never been a fan of using slurs, but they're not a thing here. And I think that's another, I think, a shift that people, again, maybe I just wasn't a recipient of it. Okay. And I understand that these things can be used. Like, I know that there's been the autistic kids in the class that were bullied relentlessly. I was bullied relentlessly. Okay. I've always been a weirdo. Okay. But I just took it on the chin and just went, okay, I don't want to say it's character building, but to an extent it is. Okay. It gives you a thick skin. There's not much that you can, there's not much, I'm kind of bulletproof in that regard. Okay. Don't test that. I'm just saying, generally speaking. Nobody's completely bulletproof, but I'm saying it, I'm resilient. But I grew up in a hazing family. I'm, old school internet. One of the first crazy websites that we would look at was rotten.com, where you'd look at fucked up stuff. It was kind of the Wild West internet. Every so often you'd get a pizza that you didn't order show up at your door because someone figured out. You get your website, DDoS, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. You'd have all of these things. And because I was, obviously, a web designer from first as a hobbyist and then professionally, keeping a website up was hard work. Okay. It was hard fucking work. If you were online and transparent like me, you kind of made yourself a target. Everyone, these things. And I think that it's really important also to understand that tools like Cloudflare, they have a very important role, and I think that we should ease up on them a little bit, because the service that they do to the overall internet, if you remember the internet before Cloudflare existed, or even AWS, where you could have redundancy in hosting, sites would fucking fall over all the time because if you for any reason. Okay, you had to be a full-on cybersecurity server nerd in order to, stay up. So again, I think we need to just get some perspective and acknowledge the massive service that Cloudflare offer, their vision of making sure that everybody has access to those services. And, I don't want to see an internet where that doesn't exist. And I think that that's where this conversation needs to elevate to, especially in tech, because who gives a fuck about a war between two Twitch streamers? I don't give a fuck. I care about the grown-ups in the room taking over and going, you know what, this is not acceptable behavior. Just because someone is a shoplifter doesn't make them a murderer. Okay, and everyone, even murderers deserve their day in court. Okay, it's innocent until proven guilty, and anybody who tries to circumvent that kind of process, I don't trust instinctively. Now, this morning, I saw that it's not just, and I'll explain what happened here, but, it starts under the premise of I want that website gone. But then they move to, taking down everything. Okay, taking down Google Voice, removing payment processes, removing someone, regardless of how you feel about Kiwifarms itself, what is, it's gotten beyond, there's a difference between, censoring somebody and humiliating them and kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking and continuing to kick. And I think that that's where it becomes ridiculous. Okay, now, I'm not going to get into the weeds on the actual, because I acknowledge that trans people are harassed online a lot. Okay, if you go into any trans person's mentions, you'll see it. Okay, I don't condone it. I have talked at length about how I think you can talk about the issue without targeting people and misgendering people and doing all of that sort of stuff. Right? You can actually talk about an issue without making it personal. Okay, also. And that's always been my perspective on all of this stuff, which is that we have to acknowledge that these debates, some of them should not be had online, first of all, because they just turn toxic. And second of all, a lot of it is being, you end up being used as a mule for certain policies that, you wouldn't agree to otherwise, such as the anti-LGBT legislation and stuff like that that's happening in America. Okay, do not support that one bit. I do not. Part of the reason why I stopped talking about any of the issues was because I didn't want to be perceived to be supporting that in any way, shape, or form. I don't. Okay, I don't like the this idea that trans people are groomers. I absolutely disavow it, and that's partially why I won't participate on certain things, even if they ask. So, I don't buy that thing, and you can go back and see that journey that I went through, which was, off the back of someone like Jessica Yaniv, who sort of was a loophole. Okay, I've only ever been interested in those who can exploit systems and exploit loopholes for personal gain or to exert power over other people. And I think that that's what we're seeing here. I see it as an abuse of power. I see it as a policy problem to solve. And I outside of that, I think people are going that this is one of those religious wars. It's just not going to be solved. Okay, I am a person who likes evidence and science and due process and principles, and like the rest, you're going to be mischaracterized either way, so it doesn't matter. So that's my point. Sorry, not my point, my position. So yeah, so the older internet, right? It was a little bit more Wild West, but again, when I say slurs don't exist here, I don't mean it in the way that, of course, we have our slurs here. Okay, there's certain things that you just don't say, right? But it doesn't have this same sort of censorious weight to it. So again, I will acknowledge that there's a slight cultural gap there, right? There's a couple, but it's just again, try to get out of yourself and your own culture and understand that there are going to be people who don't see it as a problem, and it doesn't mean that they're hateful people. It's just a cultural difference. For all these people that are about inclusion and colonization and like all that sort of shit, they don't think for a second that maybe they're American and that they're the imperialists and that they're imposing a worldview on people who didn't necessarily ask for it or consent to it, right? Much like old internet people. Okay, we were sold one thing, which was freedom to say what we wanted to say, or win, lose, or draw, whatever. You take the good with the bad, and that was the founding principle of the internet. That was what we were promised as a generation, early adopters. And then what happened was that normies moved in, they didn't like it, and that got slowly gentrified over time. Like social platforms gentrified, okay, the internet gentrified. Now, one of the arguments with this is well, if you don't like it, okay, if you don't like Twitter, if you get banned from Twitter, why don't you build your own? Well, yeah, okay, I will then, but you won't, but you can't, because this is what happens. So what Kiwifarms, this is partially why I kind of defend them in this regard, which is that, they did that. They went off and built their own community, had their own rules, they set their own norms, their own acceptable behavior, okay, their own, all of that sort of stuff, okay, knowing that every community is going to have its fuckwits. That's just, again, people organizing. But, overall, again, there is no good guys and bad guys. We don't live in the Marvel universe, okay? Things are complicated. We don't live in a world of heroes and villains. We don't live in a world of, people just need to fucking unplug and see that things are messy and complex. And, there's net good and net bad, and that can change on any given day. And just because a community, does things that, might be beyond the pale in terms of polite society, it doesn't mean that you get to dictate sort of, how that community runs. You don't get to cut them off from their payment, from all sources of income. You don't get to defame them, and you don't get to sort of organise with your mates to make claims that aren't true. Like the fact that Kiwifarms were responsible for 3 suicides. Okay, that feels true. Okay, and so I first saw this when, I was like, okay, and this is, okay, so again, being part of these communities, it feels true, okay? And it was only when I saw who was pushing the story that I went, oh yeah, I've seen this lot before. Okay, this sounds like bullshit. Okay, that's what I initially defended Cloudflare, because based on what they said, I went, well, yeah, I don't think anybody disagrees with that with removal of a website or from protection or anything like that. But even then I went, you know what, that's kind of an overreach, because when you understand what Cloudflare does, it is kind of it would need to be pretty egregious, right? The way that was worded was something that there was an imminent threat, that it was, urgent, that they needed to be taken down. But even then I said, you know what, hang on, removal of security services, that's still a cyber attack. That means that they're facilitating a cyber attack, which is a crime. And I just went, okay, hang on, what? Hang on, wait, what? And this is where there's no goodies and baddies, and things are hard and complex. And, I think being more charitable on all ends is the only real way forward. So, again, understanding what Kiwifarms is about, not necessarily endorsing all of the behavior, but also knowing what we know about, this is just evidence-based stuff, which is every community is going to have its fuckwits. All this stuff I've talked about. But none of this is really all that new. Like that community that I talked about, we made it to like the National Archives here, and we're in the archives, and like that's pretty cool. But there's a journalist here called Andrew Bolt. He's on Sky News, right? He's a prominent journalist here, and he would go into like fisticuffs with this website. He tried to get us taken down several times, okay, because he was a sacred cow that they would make fun of, and sometimes it would just go a little far, okay. And this was pre Cloudflare. This was pre any like social media, any of this. So this stuff would get into we had some wars with The Age, and we had some wars with like mainstream journalists, and some of the anonymous accounts were some of those mainstream journalists going at it with each other, and under anonymity they were able to kind of have a go at each other and manipulate that stuff, and goad each other and then write about it and all that sort of stuff. So that kind of stuff is none of that's new. Okay. And also under anonymity, one thing you need to know about Kiwifarms is that a lot of like influencers and a lot of, people who are sort of lolcows, okay, who have been, documented on the forum, to be polite, or to, as a euphemism, but, people who've been sort of documented or somehow become, of interest to Kiwifarms users, that, a lot of them are other influencers trying to start shit or build their own careers, or, like this is the weird psychology, or the kind of bizarre symbiosis of sort of parasocial, building parasocial relationships. And this is something that, I think to his credit, I've got a lot of beefs with Tim Pool, right? It's just because of, I don't agree with what he does. But one thing that he does well is that he understands this, which is that you can monetize your haters. Or that you can, as long as you are focused on, someone who hates you and someone who loves you online are somewhat the same. They're the same numbers wise in terms of the benefit. And if anything, motivated haters can actually, help build your brand. That's what you do. If you polarize, you're going to do well online. This is why I try to just kind of, I know this. I used to do this early on, but this was the thing on mummy forums. Okay, it's not a coincidence that they're also going after Mumsnet, all those sorts of things, because they're kind of going after those relics. People who don't, okay, when I say they, let me qualify that, because there's a lot of people who talk about some like mysterious they and not actually clarify who they mean. I'm talking about people whose impulse it is to take things on face value, people who sort of let themselves be used as mules because, they don't like what they see and their impulse is to censor it. Okay. Also, then you've got the sort of megalomaniac fucking journalists in the United States and other places whose, first of all, their interest is in, let's just remember that the internet is mainstream media's main competitor. Okay. In the marketplace, and that war is happening. It's not a coincidence that they're suing the archive as well, okay? Because they, the media is dying, and they're desperate, and they're trying to sort of compete with new media. That's been an ongoing war that happens in the background, and no one seems to fucking join the dots here. But there's this race to the bottom. There's also these sort of this generational shift with these bloggers. Again, when you're old school and you're from the trenches, some of these people. You've seen them and you go, you are the dumbest fucking person I've ever seen in my life. And you see them just fail upwards because they're willing to be like mean, and they're willing to lie, and they will do whatever it takes to get clicks or to get, they got, you don't think I couldn't like do that stuff. I chose not to. I gamed the system early. I realized I didn't want to do that. And I decided to just, be on the good side. And I've always tried to do that. And that was something that I decided that's part of the reason why I just don't participate in things like Kiwifarms. But I do understand it, and I will, and I get it. Okay. But it's easy to do. You just got to have no scruples. Okay. And I think that that's part of the misunderstanding as well, which is that the targets, okay, of Kiwifarms, okay, generally people who kind of deserve it, right? Again, I'm not saying that this trans stuff isn't way out of fucking hand, but again, that is something that is just way out of hand everywhere. And the problem is that because there is this overreach and censorship on mainstream platforms, also the legacy of Yaniv being able to get everyone sort of deplatformed, and like this is very much related to me and my initial stepping in to defend Megan Murphy when she got banned from Twitter. Because that was AstroTurf. That was a lot of bots, and it was somebody who had, sort of that inside connection in order to get someone deplatformed who, again, kind of, it's not the same. Again, there's different context now, but at the time I supported Megan Murphy, right? And I still do on the grounds of censorship. I also don't support all the fucking gender critical people who bully trans people. I don't. I just don't. It's just not something that I support. But I don't. Again, I just think that there's middle ground here, and you should just not be a fuckhead. But I also understand why, which is that there's this. When the gender critical subreddit got taken down, again, small portion of fuckwits. When you've got a 16,000 strong community of people, there's going to be a portion of people who are fuckwits, who ruin it for everybody. Okay, that's just, again, I'm going to emphasize 100,000 times. That's even in the trans community, 99.9% of the trans community are fine and good and whatever, trying to fight for justice, and I'm all on you. But, I think that a large part of this problem is that people won't clean house because we've gone tribal and we feel this instinct or this urge to protect our own rather than actually just like universally agree to certain norms and behaviours and conduct and lines that won't be crossed. Now, doxing. What is doxing? It's something that is not clear legally yet, okay, especially when it's something that's like public information. So, yes, Kiwifarms walked the line there, okay, because a lot of it, like that Sheets thing, was creepy as shit. Like I just went, that's a bridge too far. That said, that things have to be contextualized, okay? It wasn't like it's a deranged stalker. This was more, again, when you understand the internet, if you've seen Don't Fuck With Cats on Netflix, it's that kind of, sleuthing, mystery. Okay, how can we do this? Triangulate. It's fucking nerds, okay? That's one of the funniest words that came out of this, spurging out, right? Asperger. It's like, yeah, people, take it too far, take it too literally, think everyone's being serious, you're spurging out, okay? My husband spurgs out all the fucking time. Spurged out yesterday. In fact, I think he might be spurging right now. It's a thing. But, and that is a problem. This is where it becomes, you're not going to resolve the issue at that level. Where you do resolve the issue is with journalists who report one side uncritically, make claims uncritically, and join a campaign and promote a campaign uncritically. Now, it's really, I actually wanted to show video clips of what made me go, this is sus. And that was someone called into the Majority. Now, I've been watching this fucking thing happen for ages on the Majority Report with the Emma, the presenter on there, there's something going on there where she's just, same shit. But there's just that major disconnect between, why can't people go, you know what, there's a problem here, and maybe, yeah, anyway, let's get distracted. Not get distracted. But I saw someone just call in and say talking points. So, because if you take it on face value, you go, okay, yeah, that's fucking bad. Okay, and I can see, because I watched the media that were pushing this. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, that sounds okay. Oh, did Kiwifarms take it too fucking far? Well, that's unsurprising. All right then. Okay. But it was only because I've been studying this like sort of culture wars, and I know the history of Kiwifarms, and I know, you know, some of that stuff. And I also know that the internet has a tendency to go too far. I know they go way too far on certain things. But you know, everyone does. And you know, you don't think that there's a large portion of the trans community that think that Keppels is going way too far right now. Okay. That's the, you know, most ordinary, healthy, emotionally healthy people who are, you know, happy, get it. They understand this. Okay. They take things with a sense of proportion. And I think that that's the, you know, that's the main thing. Anyway, fading. Let me get a drink. So, what time is it? I've been fucking talking for an hour. Okay. All right. But what I think, I watched someone just call into the majority report and have these talking points. So it was, you know, they've caused three suicides, and you take it uncritically. It's on Wikipedia, so it must be true. Okay. You know, they just sort of take it on face value and they support this campaign. But then, you know, suddenly Cloudflare, and then obviously I saw the blog post from Cloudflare, and I was like, well, because Cloudflare generally on the right side here, they do, you know, these things are hard, whether you like it or not. There is things called, you know, it's like shareholder pressure, and you know, who knows? Okay, ease up on the fucking CEO of Cloudflare on this one. I don't think that I would have. I don't know how long I would have. I honestly don't know how long I would hold out in this situation. Like I'm trying to speak sense, but you know, like it's mostly because I know what we're dealing with. But you know, if these are hard problems. Is what I'm saying, is that if you if you don't have at least a small, okay. The thing that's annoying me at the moment is this uncritical, simplistic, there is only one side and one side must win, and there is only one truth, and those guys, you know, like, this fucking lynching that's going on, this lynch mob that's fucking, you know, running amok throughout institutions. Okay. This is, if anything, this, to understand the anti-trans stuff on Kiwifarms in particular, okay, and it is anti-trans, okay. But again, it's like where you start the clock and what the historical context is, which was, it does go back as far as sort of Univ sort of people gathering around that. When the Gender Critical Forum being shut down, you know, alongside the Donald, like I've talked about all this stuff, how, you know, large portions of people who just merely just express what are normal views and normal perspectives and you know, established norms, and are good people, are being completely mischaracterized, run over, you know, just run roughshod over, like, you know, by a small fringe of people that don't appear to have any rules. The rules don't seem to apply because everyone's running scared, and you know, that's terrorism. Like, again, it's like I can't see how this isn't at this point a terror cell, and this is why I stepped in with Cloudflare, and I was like, you know, that these guys are like, I've read the manifestos. They advocate for cyber terrorism. Okay, this is like not a joke, guys. Like, did you do any reading? Did you do any due diligence, right, with this thing? When you receive this is a failure of process. And it just seems like, you know, like in cybersecurity, you know, I think, again, people don't know that like a large part of cybersecurity And this is related to Cloudflare. A large part of like cybersecurity, like as a discipline, is just human shit. So I was trying to find my old article about the Ashley Madison hack, but I wrote about this in 2014, and it was basically, because marketers weren't really seeing how the role, because I was sort of in marketing at the time, sort of, I've always had lots of job titles, but always sort of, whatever. But I wrote a column for the paper here, and it was basically that, people who hold data, so marketers, tech people, developers, it's a very important and sacred role because we hold people's secrets. And what happened with the Ashley Madison hack was that it wasn't just a direct hack of the server, but when you try to, breach sort of, a website or, let's say, you like stalker or whatever, right? You try to, get access to someone's house, so to speak. You're going to try every angle. So, like think about like these things as like a house. Okay. Now, anybody can get into any house. No house is a fortress. Okay. They're going to, there's always a window. If you can't get the door, you get, you try the window. If you can't get in the window and you've got a ladder, you can get up through the roof. Sometimes it's just a matter of ringing the doorbell and talking your way in, okay? And so a large part of cybersecurity and all sorts of security is, social engineering and using, just having a conversation and using people and using the media or using whatever to sort of get access or get something done that isn't a direct sort of hack. And so with Ashley Madison, they sort of go through. Sorry, I didn't explain that well because my brain wandered. But my metaphors are all mixed here. Trying to explain it. I'm in two minds about whether I'd kind of normie it down or not. So that's why it's sort of not coming across clearly. But what Cloudflare does is that Cloudflare doesn't just host websites. Okay. Cloudflare, if you think about a house, okay, Cloudflare are the ones who are they're like a fence, like a gated fence, like a big concrete wall out the front of your house, okay? So it stops someone getting to the front door, or it stops someone getting, sort of closer to the house than let's just think build mass. See, this is going to be bad because I the reason I'm hesitating is because I really don't want to be advocating for building walls on this second stream. But you get what I'm saying. So you've got your house. So houses have various entry points, up to knocking on the door. Cloudflare make it so that there's a big wall to the point where you can't knock on the door. Okay, so it kind of, imagine that you're being sort of hammered, but they go for the wall, not for the house, because houses are more vulnerable than say a fortified wall or a moat. Actually, no, moat's probably a bit better. All right, so moat and drawbridge. Cloudflare are the moat. Okay, so what the fuck, Taya? What are you doing? Anyway, but so what they do is they provide that layer so that basically like security, okay? They don't necessarily host the website. Now, what was asked of them was, and this is what happened to me yesterday. Yesterday, because I use Cloudflare, and so what happened to me yesterday was I got an email that said that my Cloudflare had been cancelled, okay? I haven't done anything wrong, but I have been talking about Kiwifarms. Turned out it was just because the credit card was expired and I'd forgotten about it, so I just went and fixed it. But you should, when you provide security services, that feeling should not occur, which is that I should not receive an email where it's perfectly fucking normal to, for my account to be fucked because I forgot to update the credit card. And my speech, okay, that should not be a thing, okay. But basically what happened was on the, claim that you would think that only in the most egregious setting that Cloudflare would operate in this way, which was that there was an imminent threat, okay, that it was, urgent. There was no sort of, They couldn't immediately get law enforcement, which I doubt. I imagine law enforcement are all over this, okay? And that they could just switch something off because of a pressure campaign, okay? Which is what it was. But they didn't also do any real due diligence. Took me a day to really go, okay. At best, it is there's doubt about the truth. I don't care either way whether it's true or not. It's about whether the process was followed and whether this was something that is, like, again, if you are in tech and aren't worried about services being withdrawn for defending speech, or someone goes and just claims things that aren't true about you, and they err on the side of the person who is making the claim. And like I said before, like, the reason why the legal system exists is to, get to the truth of the facts. And it's just like, like YouTube, for example, they don't get involved in sort of, copyright disputes. They say, well, sort it out in the court. And I think that that's the best way to go. But intervening based on one claim, which turns out to be false, okay. I'm not going to say false. Misrepresents what happened, misrepresents the truth. And there's at least doubt. And no one's had a day in court, okay. No one's, there's just doubt as to what is the truth is. To turn around and then make it so, for people in tech who use Cloudflare, to turn around and go, trust us, we did fuck up, but we think that maybe we didn't make the best decision with the last two times. So let's say that, again, I always end up end up having to defend people that I don't necessarily agree with or support or like what they do. But, that's what the legal system is. Everyone has the right to a lawyer, no matter how bad they are as a person. Everyone has the right to be tried only for the crime that they are charged. Like, you can have a number of different charges, but you bring only, one fundamental principle of law is that you are only, tried on the crime that you are charged with. The other history, and, yes, it can take the pattern of behavior can be established, but you still have things like reasonable doubt. You still have things like, one of the things that I found really bizarre was, with Jesse Singal just posted a thing on it. And they're like, oh, but, they did this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, well, that's not what you claim they did. People are focused, like, this is the thing. It's like, you could have someone who is a drug dealer. You could have someone who, is dealing drugs. They're a shoplifter. They're a bad person, okay? I'm not saying Kiwifarms are. I'm just saying generally. They've got a rap sheet. They're not sympathetic, okay? The legal system is designed to protect that person from being vilified because of past crimes and only focusing on the crime that they're actually accused of. And that is what Jesse was defending, was that there is no evidence, okay, that this was actually anything other than your bog standard troll, okay, and or a Fed post, which, there's no evidence for that. And that was the thing where, in collusion with the media, okay, in parts of the media who have done this before, and this is why I end up defending people like Peter Thiel, and people that are unsympathetic, because what Gawker did with Peter Thiel, they still write that narrative like somehow he just got Gawker shut down because he didn't like Gawker, when he didn't realize that they actually, when he was a private citizen, outed him. Okay, and went after him, and then he saw with, like the facts, again, facts don't matter, but it's the same people that spread that same lie about Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or whatever, okay? It's like, well, no, they might be unsympathetic, but, I'm sorry, but that doesn't let you off the hook. God forbid you ever end up in charge, and God forbid you ever end up a judge, because that's not the right side of things. That's not the right side of history, which is that you don't get to accuse someone of causing 3 suicides, you don't get to accuse 60, how many thousands of people of causing a murder that is questionable at best, okay, that is mischaracterized, absolutely mischaracterized, that there is history and context, and that you get to just decide what the truth is because you then go and, uncritically write. This is, again, and I know that people are going to go, ha ha, it's about ethics in journalism, but it really is. It is that there's these people who get to just, and again, it's not even about whether Careful's claims are correct. It's about the fact that it's not the media's job to decide this. It's not Cloudflare's job to decide this. And I might not have a lot of faith in the police, and I don't have a lot of faith in, I understand that there's problems with the legal process, but much like anything, no process is perfect, but it's as close as we get. The role of government, and this is an America brain again, which is they have no idea what the fuck government's for, which is to mediate these things, okay? And it is to decide these things. And I don't want to be on a public utility, but I'm just saying I would rather be on private social media platforms where, than a public utility. But at the same time, I want the rules to be applied evenly, and I would like a right of reply. I would like to be able to correct the record. So I like the GDPR and, all those sorts of things. I have the right, under the Privacy Act to request my records, see what they've got on me and have it amended. But for some reason, Twitter sits above that. For some reason, Facebook sits above that. And it's like, well, no, I would like to stop being shadow banned by you because I've been mass reported for talking about troll farms and I've been reported by those troll farms. That's not fair. That's not, no, this is happening. This is a design decision made by you for your shareholders. That's not okay. But, I'm okay with there being rules because then you can just take your money and go, okay, well, but I want them to be applied evenly, and I want there to be some transparency about it. Not have people like, journalists who, for fuck, I don't know how that woman has a job. She must be threatening to Me Too fucking everybody. I don't know what the fuck. But how these people just run, get away with this stuff. These just through fear and intimidation and, worried that she's going to do something to them. We just need to be I think sane adults. This is partially, I could have shut up about this. I didn't. I wish I had, I don't know whether it's a good idea because, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, fuck it. But, there's nothing left to lose. And also, I think people who are sane and responsible know when they, the overreach just gets it's just getting ridiculous. Adults need to be fucking, taking charge and going, you know what? No, there are rules in place. Okay, you're taking the piss. You should be fired and you have no right to call yourself a journalist. And this, again, none of this is new. This happened with the press, the printing press and stuff with yellow journalism. And, suddenly, eventually people, well, not suddenly, but over time, people got sick of this shit, sick of this. And then, that's where the, journalistic standards and ethics and those sorts of things came from. And we forget that suddenly we've got 14-year-old fucking journalists who are calling themselves journalists, and everyone's calling themselves a journalist. And I've never called myself that, and I never would, because it's, first of all, beneath me at this point. It's like the worst fucking thing you could ever be right now, other than like maybe one or two. And, it's just gutter press everywhere, but they're running roughshod and destroying lives and making claims about people that I know are much more diverse, much more complex. And I'm sorry, but these people just need to grow a fucking thicker skin. You don't own the internet. You don't own it. It's not yours. And it's like, it's perfectly fine. Like, I am perfectly fine where, that we all agree that going off community or off board or whatever, okay, and onto mainstream platforms and harassing people is not okay, okay? It's not doxing if you fucking put it out there in public, okay? It's not illegal to share things that are out in public. Could it be argued that it's harassment? Yes. But again, that's a criminal charge, and that needs to be done through law enforcement. Okay, the way that Cloudflare presented this was like it was some sort of live streamed fucking terrorist threat. And it's like, well, no, you can't bring in previous instances, okay, because previous crimes. And it's like, we've got to focus on the facts at hand here. Okay, and I hope that Cloudflare can consider this with new information and actually reverse their decision, because what's happening at the moment is just such an egregious overreach that has implications for everybody. And anybody who thinks that, again, I talked about Gamergate before, but, like, people are going to feel threatened when you take away, like, especially, Gamergate was, what I find bizarre is that they're always like, they make fun of autism and they make fun of this and they make fun of me. It's like, well, they got trans moderators. A lot of the people on there are autistic and they're making fun of themselves. I got autistic son and an autistic husband, and I fucking think Spurg is the funniest word I've ever heard. Relax. You're not the fucking word police. Just because you can't laugh doesn't mean other people, just doesn't mean other people can't, right? Those words. But it's, and this is the thing. It's like, well, I don't know, get your own community then. Don't read it. Okay? It's not like and don't poke the bear. And we also, again, not getting into the weeds, but we also know, like I said, this sort of, it's easy to make yourself more famous by playing victim and, demonizing these bad guys. Now, I'm not saying I don't empathize. Okay, I really do. I've been a target for these things. I've been doxxed. I've been harassed. I've gone to the police and the police have gone, you're on your own. Has he committed a crime yet? No, he hasn't. Well, then go, I've been through all of this. So don't misunderstand. Is that no? Don't misrepresent or confuse what I'm saying. I've been on the receiving end of harassment over the years. It sucks. Okay? And you shouldn't do it. You should know where the line is. But also, I'm also saying that it's what you sign up for. Part of the reason why I, didn't like do YouTube and those things early on, and I just shut this stuff down, was because I knew what that's. I don't know why people think that there isn't a price, that they're just going to they can just. They're going to get the money and the clicks and the audience and, that there isn't a big cost or flip side to these things, that is the price that you pay. I was talking to, like with, what was it? I don't know if I've said this on stream before, but about like with Joe Rogan. It's like, well, this is what you don't realize. He doesn't get $100 million because he's sacrificed, because he, any of that stuff. Like, people like to sort of cope that way, and they think that if they work hard that they can do it, or if they, put in, they grind or whatever, that they're going to get all this money and fame and riches and stuff. They think that the effort's the price, but the effort's not the price, because everybody works hard. The effort's not the price. Do you know what the price of $100 million is? And do you know what the price of, 1 million followers is? Do you know what the price of a popular community is, and the cars and the houses and the thing? Right? It's a stalker. It's the fact that you then are no longer you are no longer a person. You are now an entity, okay? And there's people who just don't understand what the cost of influence is. And this is something, this is part of the course that I was sort of working on around influence, and really being clear-headed about what you're signing up for, because there's a whole generation of people who just think that being on TikTok means getting lots of love. It's like, no, it also means getting a fuck ton of hate, and that's what the money's for. And that's why YouTube should be paying people a lot more. That's why we should be paying people a lot more money, because they're effectively paid to be, receiving all this abuse and shit. That's the cost. There's no free lunch. And this is, that's the flip side of it. And I figured that out early on when I had early influence. So I know this, and I'm happy operating at a certain, I don't like being suppressed, because obviously I can't earn a livable wage doing, blogging or streams and stuff, but I'm happy at that sort of, at that smaller level, because I know what the cost is. I know that and also that, I've talked about this before around, lookalike audiences. And, I'm amazed how well behaved the chat's been. That's so great. Like you just ask people to behave themselves rather than perpetuating this behavior, and people are generally pretty all right. You set the expectation. And this is where, picking on Kiwifarms, well, I can't see any evidence that they have done half of what I've seen trans activists do over the years to people, kicking and, destroying lives, like absolutely destroying people in a way that reminds me of every pathological, disgusting bully in school who didn't know when to stop hitting and didn't know when to stop kicking, and it's like, well, I think that this is where, I don't think necessarily. Okay, so Daryl said you're thinking that you sign up for this even after Britney Spears. I'm not sure. That's a different situation because Britney Spears is underage. I would say that her parents pushed her into that and that she really didn't have agency. So it's a different situation. But it's the same thing. Like, this is where parental stuff. Yeah, anyway, that's a different thing because she wasn't able to consent to that because she was put into, she was made a child star. And that's why child stars are so fucked in the head, because they're pushed into these things and, without their consent, and, they pay the price for their parents' decisions. I think that that's I don't see how that's inconsistent. I'm not saying that people deserve it. And this is where I think just not being fucking stupid and actually knowing what words mean helps, which is that I'm not saying people deserve it. I'm not saying that people consciously go in for it. I'm saying this is the cost. I'm not saying it should be that way. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying anyone deserves it and that they should, accept this kind of stuff. I'm saying that's what happens. It's what it is. I'm a pragmatist. I deal with things as they are and try to make them better from there. You can't use the, magic land. You can't go into this and expect differently from the internet. It's just not, not without a massive overreach, which is what we're seeing right now, and not without a whole bunch of unintended consequences, which is when I get a fucking email about my Cloudflare account, which was a fucking, that I suddenly assume that I'm under attack. And also it doesn't get companies off the hook for, just arbitrarily withdrawing services or security services, that's the main issue. And also, the lack of journalistic integrity, where again, just parroting stuff may or may not be true, but it's not up to me to decide whether it's true. It's up to law enforcement, and you shouldn't be reporting on it. It's just unethical journalism, right? So it's not so much, this is the thing. It's like, oh, so you must be for that thing if you're against that thing. It's like, no, I just think that you haven't thought this through and you don't realize that you're looking like a bully and that you're a monster that you think you're trying to fight. Like, we don't live in the fucking Marvel movie. I said that we don't, it's not good guys and bad guys here. And I'm not defending at no point in the last week where I've been talking about this have I once, I've laughed because it's creative, but, I have not once endorsed doxing. I have not once endorsed harassing. I have not once said that anyone deserves it. If anything, my first reaction to this Cloudflare thing was support. Okay. My first thing is, and it still is, because I also understand how it fucking works and how business works, and that corporate legal won't find any reason to get the fuck out of this thing quick smart. Okay. And, and this is again, this one's for the Kiwifarms fellas and ladies, which is, don't make it so fucking hard to defend you. Okay. Maybe this could be a lesson for the community as well. Okay. Which is, maybe try to figure out how to get better optics. Okay. And I think that, we should all learn and grow from it. Okay. Because if I believed, luckily, I'm glad that I went, it's only because I saw who was pushing this story in lockstep and using the uncritical talking points that this was obvious. Again, because I know how disinformation campaigns work, they follow a certain process and certain things that just, I was like, oh, that's sus. Okay, this looks like that template that I've been, talking about, or like the playbook. But, if I, it's still not okay to stalk and harass people. I still think it crosses the line. I still think nobody comes out of this looking all that great. And, you know, the rest is up to law enforcement. Also, don't forget, law enforcement monitor these things. And so, again, I needed to qualify I forgot to qualify this at the beginning of the stream, which is they may have access to information that we don't. They may have access to logs or chats or groups or, you know, stuff that I don't. I'm only going on what I can see publicly. I'm not saying anything about, again, you know, like I'm not one of those people that's pretending to know what's true in a sea of people who are known to not be truthful on all sides. Okay. Many things can be faked. Everyone is spinning sort of their version of events. But that's what courts are for. It's what law enforcement is for. And unless, like I said, unless there is an imminent threat to life, again, I would say I doubt it. And it wasn't even there, and it was down within 14 minutes. And, you know, like where Cloudflare fucked up here and where law enforcement fucked up here is, you know, they could have done better risk assessment. Okay, this was a knee-jerk response. And I hope that Cloudflare fix this decision. I hope that they can actually win back trust, whether or not. See, and that's my other thing is that, you know, as a provider, I will think twice. Right? I was going to actually, here we go. I was going to be the host for a friend's podcast, okay, and their website. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. With this current climate, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't afford it. I can't afford the risk. You know, and that's the reality is that you find that people are denied services that, you know, this is the impact is that you can't, you know, because I can't afford to get sued. I can't afford that liability. And, you know, the edgy and, you know, gender critical people. And I just went, you know what, I'm sorry. You're safer with Facebook and Patreon and those things and tell your people to behave. I know how some people behave in the community, so I can't host it. And I said that, and it's like, well, I just can't take it on. And that's what, you know, that kind of, you know, yeah, exactly. And so it's more about the behavior, which is that it's the chilling effect that occurs, whether like, and Cloudflare can say, yeah, it was exceptional, but it was exceptional the first 2 times. And it will be exceptional the next time and the next time. And that does erode trust. It does make you second guess yourself and your decisions. And that's the same thing. Like with my last stream was Mark Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan. And I was like, well, yeah, I believe him. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe him to, you know, I always tend to believe everyone believes. Most people, if you're not a psychopath, what you are saying is true to you in the moment. I can say stuff that I believe in that moment to be true, and I can say the exact opposite thing and contradict myself and believe that too. You know, like it's contextual. So most people believe their version of events, and I believe most people are good faith. At no point have I claimed at all anything about Keffel's character or anything. I'm saying there's doubt. And reasonable doubt is enough for me. That's the threshold where the other things kick in. Okay, there's that presumption of innocence, and that presumption of innocence has to apply in all cases, especially when it comes to what, you know, when it's not enough to take the site down. Also, when you are the security guard with the wall and you take the wall down so then they can bomb the fucking thing, but not just bomb him, but continue to kick and kick and kick and kick and take everything away, and they're not content with that. No, you know, like you were being trusted to, like, you know, like in the hard times to go, no, you know what, at least do due diligence on the facts of this thing, not cave to like an largely astroturfed, you know, Twitter thing, a Twitch war that's got a lot of history to it. Okay. But yeah, but the thing is but who decided that? Was it law enforcement? Was there a court order? Who decided? This is the thing. There needs to be some transparency, because from what I can see, okay, so I don't know whether you've come here late or what, but harassment is a criminal. There's a criminal threshold for, okay. That's a criminal charge. That needs to be proven in court, okay. There's a mechanism for that. Trolling, fucking whatever. Who cares about trolling? Who gives a shit? Okay. Trolling is the backbone of the internet. Maybe go back to the beginning of the stream. Okay. So I don't give a fuck about, and also, who cares? They didn't commit a crime. The facts of the matter are that there was a claim made about very egregious things that occurred that did not occur, that were not truthful. I don't give a fuck. Like I said, you could be a serial shoplifter, a drug dealer, or an overall bad person, but you'd be accused of murder. If you didn't commit the murder, then you're innocent of murder. When Cloudflare are claiming that they fucking did murder. Do you see the difference? May you never be accused of anything. And, you know, like, you better hope your whole fucking history is clear lest you be accused of a crime. That's not how things operate. I'm sorry, but, and yeah, anyway. So I'm not going to argue with that anymore. So, so Rockety Roll said, I feel a lot like online famous people actively benefit from bullying when they've built up a good community around themselves. It almost feels it is symbiotic, and that was what I mentioned earlier in the stream as well. So it almost feels symbiotic until it's not, for whatever reason. Yeah, so a lot of this is that there is history, and, you know, you poke the bear, 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 and especially when it comes to this other stuff, like I said, it goes back further than this one particular thing. It goes back to Jessica Yaniv and, you know, people feeling like resentment over all of the censorship that's happening across the board when it comes to those kind of conversations, right? Yeah, okay, so Daryl is being muted because he's arguing with, you know, I know all of these things. I have said repeatedly that I'm not here to discuss those details, okay? I don't give a fuck what they did. It's not for you to claim or decide. This is defamatory. You don't just repeat things uncritically. This is what I'm saying. I don't care because from what I've seen, I can't see any evidence of that. Okay, so can't comment anymore. So I've said repeatedly that this is good faith. Don't be a fuckwit. We're talking about the broader issue of people not, you know, getting a fair hearing, not getting right of reply. This is the role of journalists. This is the role of Cloudflare. This is the role of grown-ups, not people doing fucking stupid Twitch shit. I don't care. This is the stupidest stuff. I don't care who did what. It's not up to us, okay? If you're not prepared to stand up for people who have been, you know, it's like it's the police's job. The police monitor this stuff. If the police don't see a problem with it, then I don't see a problem with it. There's a process. You know, this is no different to like, but miss, he's bullying. But miss, he bullied first. It's like, I don't give a fuck who started it. You're both being stupid. I'm here to laugh at dickheads. And don't call me a murderer by association without consequences. Okay? And that, when I say consequences, I don't mean destroy you. I mean, you know, me using whatever like mechanisms, legal mechanisms I have, including defamation or, you know, other, you know, avenues to, you know, clear my name. I don't know where the fuck these people get off accusing a forum of mostly good people, okay, who are just having a laugh of something, you know, which again, the facts don't matter. We know the facts don't matter, which is that it was a sleeper account to begin with. It could have been anybody, given that things were escalating. The timing of the screenshot, the timing of things, the timeline looks sus. There's doubt. And where there's doubt, due process has to kick in. You're not the fucking judge. You're not the executioner. You're not the fucking prison guard. Back off. Who cares? Go to court. That's my point. Okay? You don't get to go to the principal and get someone kicked out of school because you don't like them. Everyone has certain, like, rights. And also, it's not like, you know, like this doesn't happen on Twitter every day. Women get threatened all day, every day by these fucking anime fuckwits. And every time you report them, you have to play whack-a-mole with the death threats. And every time you report them, Twitter goes, no, they haven't done anything wrong. So which way is it? Twitter works in one direction, okay? One side always gets protected and the others are all left to fucking fend for themselves. And if they won't, if they go off and just create their own community, that's not enough. You've got to attack that community. But also, that community is useful. Most of these media people use these communities for research. They won't admit it, but I know they do because I know some of them. You think, see, I love how people come here and just assume that because you're a little old streamer and you don't, or you hide on purpose, okay, because you know what these things are and what the consequences of all of these things are, that I don't know people, that I'm not networked, that I don't talk to people behind the scenes, that I don't know what's up, that I don't have tentacles all through fucking tech and I don't actually know what's going on and I don't do my research. See, the problem with people on all sides of this culture war shit is that they assume that everyone's an idiot and that they've equated 1 million subscribers or like, you know, lots of money with intelligence or with, you know, influence. You know, there's different types of influence, and the type of influence that happens on social media and that sort of thing is this is it. It's toxic. It's arguing with dickheads. It's arguing with dumb people. It is appealing to the lowest common denominator. The worst people get elevated, or those that are willing to be mules for some fucking corrupt political force. Okay, most rational people, if you are rational and you are mentally well, you wouldn't be seeking influence in this way. Okay, so I'm sorry, but on both sides, win stupid games, win stupid prizes. Oh, sorry, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But one side is subverting the process, and adults at Cloudflare and other places like that are pandering to it. Okay, we need to clean house across all online communities and all bad actors, and let them create their own communities and monitor it. Like this is the thing. People don't realize, again, like I've said, law enforcement monitor all these things. You think all of these fucking idiots who think they're smarter than everyone around them. They think they've figured out the newest way to do things. Like Andrew Tate, he's like the newest fucking person to run a scam, the first ever misogynist to say things, the first ever to fucking do this. It's like, no, Kiwifarms actually started after the site that I was on shut down. Okay, we've watched this war, this constant war, this gentrification that keeps going on, where people are just being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to the sidelines. And then when they go somewhere to complain about being pushed and pushed and pushed to the sidelines in a humorous way, they're fucking securitized. It's like, no, this is not acceptable. Let the grown-ups decide. Okay, maybe read some shit too. Maybe, you know, if you can't be charitable, I've got this thing. It's just now, if you can't be charitable to the other point of view and understand the complexity and embrace that complexity and work through it and try to find solutions, then you're not worth listening to. Right? I don't care about what happened. It's the overreach. Okay. This is why I make it very clear that I speak with my own words, and if I've fucked up, I'll watch this back, and if I fucked up anything, I'll clarify it. But, you know, you don't get to own my words. You don't get to control what I say. And if any of you fucks come after me, I'm ready. Good luck. Welcome to the honeypot, motherfuckers. I don't give a fuck, okay? Because I've been talking about this for years. I have nothing to hide. And that's why I spoke up about it, mostly. Because I was like, you know what? Someone fucking reasonable who knows what this is needs to speak up about it and explain what's going on here. Okay? I've watched this happen over and over and over again, and it gets more and more empowered. And, you know, there's a thing in like hacker culture where it's like the difference between white hat and black hat is, you know, there's a certain ethical line that you don't cross, which is that you don't go after fucking infrastructure. You don't, like, you know, you do these things for good. Now, you might think that you're doing things for good, but you're not. You're in a terror cell. ISIS thinks they're doing shit for good too. You're a terror cell, okay? And if you're in this movement and watching this video or watching this stream, I want you to know I support your cause. I don't support your methods, and I never will. Okay? I do support trans rights. At no point have I said otherwise, at any time. Okay? I'll make fun of dickheads like anybody else, but don't be a dickhead. If you're a dickhead online, I'm sorry, but the world's not for you. Okay, sorry, that came out wrong. I meant, I'm sorry, but you need to go and do some growth and realize that, you know, we don't have to cater to you. Okay. I don't have to adjust myself. I will make accommodations wherever possible. Okay. Same with fucking Spurs. Okay. This is where we've gone wrong, which is that, yeah, the world is a little bit structurally fucked. Okay. For people like me and for people like you and for women and for, trans and minority and, like all that shit. I'm on side. I'm on your team, dickhead. Grow up. Okay. Yes, accommodations, good. Okay. But there's going to always, I've had a lifetime in activism. There's always going to be pushback. Okay. You got to, there's always going to be people that, are put out by stuff. And if you overreach, you lose allies along the way. And this is what's happening. And my biggest concern is that there's a bunch of people now that would have been allies that are now going to give you the reverse fucking, that they're just going to withdraw their support because this is an overreach. Every single person I know in tech has gone, this is a line. And I've been warning about this for years and I've gone, you know what, it doesn't end here. If you can take the fucking subreddits down and you can take things down and it's like, I don't support him. I don't support the Donald. I end up having to support these things that I don't necessarily agree with. Because there's people with no sense of consequence, think they're the center of the fucking universe, manipulating systems. The rules don't apply. They get to sidestep due process at every turn. And it's like, well, no, okay, that's not good faith. That's terrorism. Okay. And I just want to make that very clear. And so, in this instance, Cloudflare stepping aside so that a cyber attack could occur, that's a fucking, and they go, we're sorry, this was difficult. Well, yeah, I know. But, it is difficult. That's what you're paid to do, the difficult shit. I mean, in this instance, most of their stuff is free. Again, I'm not saying that Cloudflare aren't any way to blame here. They just got to think about this and put it right, I hope. They won't, but I'm hoping that they put it right. But, or anybody who's thinking of caving next. Okay. And it's just like, think about this shit. You can't go after infrastructure. You can't bypass the law. And also on swatting. Let me talk about swatting. Swatting is only really a problem when you've got a militarized police. Okay? Swatting doesn't work most other places. And also, there's question marks about whether that actually even occurred. Okay? Because even law enforcement question the narrative on that. Okay? I'm not getting into those weeds because I just don't want to I'm sick of being a target. But I'm saying, okay, hi, Matt. Yeah, it's it initially felt harder. It initially felt like there was no winning moves here, right? I've been writing a thing, but it initially felt like there was no real way to win this. But there is a way to win this, and that is to focus on truth, and that is to focus on what actually happened. That is to focus on the issue in front of you at the moment, at hand, not let people who are showing that they just are willing to lie to achieve a political outcome sort of, override all of these processes. And also, fucking good luck not having a fucking massive backlash, and that's not a threat in any way. I don't want this. I'm warning you as somebody who has vast experience in this area and sees what's coming and has been warning about what's coming for some time, right? Clean house, trans activists. Fucking hell. We want to help you. We want to support. We want to do the right thing. But, you need to just clean it. This is not, it's not going to, I'm an old socialist. I fucking am 100% on board with the cause, but my God. I can't believe that this is allowed to occur, that you're allowed to weaponize social justice in this way. Right? Because the more that you weaponize it and the more that you manipulate people and the more that you misuse, and openly lie, the more that you hire bot armies and troll farms and, astroturf a movement, people aren't going to fucking stay with the movement for very long. But again, you're the center of the universe, right? And any criticism is an attack on you personally because you're a fucking child. And children, like, no, children have no weight, no fucking say in this conversation. I'm done. Can the grown-ups fucking intervene, please? And Cloudflare, fucking hell, talk to me if you want. Anyway, I'm going to go. Talk too long. Matt's here. Hello, Matt. Hopefully I handled that okay. But, you know, if you're sitting around, there's not many people watching. I think most, again, I like being on the other side of the world time-wise because, you know, my ego is the center of the universe. Mine too. I am the center of the universe. No, but the thing is, like, I'm sympathetic because, and I'm sure you're the same, right? Where we get it. I'm neurodiverse. I was bullied. I've been the bully, and I was the bully, and I've been the bully, and you know, it's messy. But you know, it's not working like this. Like you just fucking hell. Who the fuck raised these people? As much as I like the idea of anti-bullying, it hasn't fucking worked, has it? It's backfired. There's consequences. George Carlin's bit, the child worship. Backfired, didn't it? Was it? It turns out that, what was it, highly aggressive, was it? Highly aggressive, antisocial people think very highly of themselves. It's self-esteem. But yeah, this is like, you don't go after infrastructure, man. And there's clear conflict, aside from the clear conflict of interest and the clear collusion between, you know, media. Anyway, the things I haven't defined, DDoS. So here's some fun things. So Kiwifarms, 10 gigabytes a second DDoS attack. So basically a DDoS attack is much like astroturfing and bots, being flooded by bots, but they do that with pings to the server. So they just ping the server. Servers can only take so much. It's like, so basically like being, you know, like a traffic being backed up. Okay, so you try to, you know, put so much in there that you can't actually, you know, the highway is blocked, right? And so you kind of like a gridlock. But you do that by pinging the server like billions and millions of times. Okay, that's what a denial of service attack is. The internet was very unpleasant before Cloudflare. Let me tell you that. But the other thing is, like, you know, Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, CloudFront, competitor to Cloudflare. Okay, a lot more expensive than Cloudflare. Cloudflare's, I think 80% of their customers are using the free service, so they do a public service. And that's, you know, for me, going after, you know, again, you go, okay, well, I'm not making any claims, but hey, journalists, anyone want to ask the question about any conflict of interest and whether, you know, and this is something that's just happened, I think, in general, which is that tweets are now considered fucking, you know, press releases. It's just this bizarre false equivalence of information. There's no hierarchy of information anymore, right? You know, these bloggers are considered journalists. Tweets are considered fucking, you know, press releases. You know, blogs are considered Substacks are considered authoritative. Rogan is considered, you know, knowledgeable on things when he's not. He's just a fucking podcaster. It's like, well, journalists aren't doing this. Is a failure of journalism and failure of mainstream media. They're dying and they're desperate and they'll do anything to take down anybody who's doing their job better than them. And I'm going to say that 80% of the time, aside from the fuckwits, Kiwifarms does a better job than most journalists. And I think that that's the real problem. Don't be a lolcow. Holds a mirror to them. Okay. If I was, you know, I'm more offended that I'm not a lolcow by now. I'm pretty embarrassing. I fucking say dumb shit all the time. Anyway, I'm in the void. That's fine. But, you know, it's just, that's a conscious thing. Anyway, don't even like the attention that this is getting. So anyway, I'm going to go. I hope everyone's well. I hope people can calm the fuck down. I haven't really explained things very well, but I'm just talking my thoughts. I'm just, you know, again, I had no script, just riffing, whatever. And I'm also not feeling well. Had a bit of a headache. So, but yeah. So anyway, I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. All that stuff. Grow the fuck up, everybody. Kiwifarms people, don't make me regret it. Please learn. Learn from it. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And it also presumes that the content and behavior that is acceptable will remain static. And the thing is, it hasn't. I said this at the beginning of the stream as well, which is a lot of this is cultural. You know, like a lot of that stuff, it's first of all subjective, but also cultural. Like Australians don't we get it. Hazing, it's fine, whatever. Who gives a fuck? But there's people who think that hazing is abuse. And there's people who think that, you know, there's no way to affectionately call someone a cunt. You can't use the C word. You can't use the N word. You can't use the R word. You can't use that word. You can't use that word. You can't use any words other than the fucking children of the corn. Remember when I was talking about Clubhouse and you had those I used to sit and listen in those fucking woke Clubhouse rooms, and it's like children of the corn. It's like, yeah, non-violent language. If you have, again, I've been many, many years on the left, organising meetings, you know, secretary, all those things, okay? There's always some fuckwit that will hijack the process and enforce language and have a tantrum and fucking flex, okay? They don't run the show, okay? Because most people are just trying to get shit done. And it's like but they'll sit around and they're just policing language and, you know, they're annoying. Leave them, like they're fucking annoying. And, you know, Kiwifarms, to, again, not defending all of the actions, okay, or speaking to any of the claims. Not a lawyer, not law enforcement. I don't know. But I do know that internet psychology, and I do know, like, you know, community psychology and all that, you know, all those things, the psychology of the internet stuff and why people's motivations and why people do what they do. And it's anybody who has any understanding of how, you know, people, you know, what motivates certain communities online and how they behave and, you know, all that sort of stuff. There's large portions of people that will just roast, you know, for love and give you shit. There's people who will love the attention. There's people who won't like the attention. There's people who will both love and hate the attention and be addicted to it and fucking, you know, poke a hornet's nest and then be surprised when they get stung and then play victim when they get stung. Okay. And that's why there's a, you know, there is a small part of me, to Careful's credit and, you know, that campaign's credit, there's a part of me that's impressed. Like, you know, if you, again, you know, props to them. They shouldn't be able to get that far. Right? It feels like penetration testing, right? Because it's happened a few times and it's like, well, shit, I didn't expect them to get that fucking far. But, you know, at the same time, it's not okay. Doesn't mean I endorse it. I'm impressed, but you know, it's like with my, you know, when your kids lie to you and they tell a lie that's so audacious and they get away with it. And then you go, you know, as a parent, you're like, oh, okay, I'm a bit impressed that you're that clever, but it's still not okay. You know, it's the same sort of thing. But, you know, sanity has to prevail and, you know, these things are complicated. But people also, you know, they join communities for different reasons, but also, you know, when you know the history of like why these things are there, it's not as simple as, you know, again, where you started the clock. Because if you start the clock at your knee, people are seeing, you know, they kind of double down on the one thing that they're not allowed to say elsewhere. And they're going to be using slurs elsewhere, you know, that sort of stuff, right? They're going to do that. That's a normal thing. People are letting off steam for the most part. The problem is that you don't like people fucking saying words. And that's a you problem. Because people are going to say words. And if they're not saying it, they're definitely thinking it. Okay, so get some better arguments, win hearts and minds, because I'm an ally, and if you're losing me, then you fucking lost a lot of people, because I'm the most charitable person you could probably imagine when it comes to these things. So anyway, I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. Our dishwasher's being fixed. Okay. Take care. Bye.